Ja, vad gör man nu? Förslagsvis kan man lämna Las Vegas och United States och bege sig till en annan kontinent och framförallt uppleva en annan livsstil. Vi ska möta 2 unga kvinnor från södra Afrika som båda fostras under apartheid. Först en kort introduktion av Cecilia Bäcklander.
2 kvinnor som möts och talar om sin barndom och ungdom. Det är temat för det här programmet. Men egentligen är det ett program om södra Afrika och apartheidpolitiken.
Yes.
Den ena kvinnan är nämligen Lindiwe Mabuza. Hon kommer från Sydafrika, växte upp i Soweto, den svarta segregerade förorten till Johannesburg. Nu är hon representant i Sverige för motståndsrörelsen ANC, African National Congress. Vår andra medverkande är Selma Hishongwa. Hon är från Sydafrikas grannland Namibia, som Sydafrika ockuperar sedan 1966. Selma föddes på den landsbygd där arbetskraften till de vitas gruvor och fabriker rekryterades. Hon flydde sitt hemland i de sena tonåren för att arbeta för befrielserörelsen SWAPO och för dess räkning studerade hon många år i Sverige. Både Lindiwe och Selma levde som barn i länder där de och alla andra svarta helt dominerades av den vita minoriteten. Hur levde de och hur ser framtiden ut? Kommer de någonsin att kunna återvända till sina hemländer?
I think that the first thing I really would like to do when I get home is just to touch the soil of my country. That's the biggest wish I have.
I have walked these streets for 10 years, but they still feel strange to me. Here I gave birth to my 2 children. I long for my own mother to come and help me take care of my babies. She would do all the things that grandmothers should do. But we all have a mother in Namibia. We who left our home country to fight the South African occupation of it. Thinking about all these things, my mood was pretty low this afternoon when I went to meet my South African friend Lindiwe, who had just come back from a trip to Africa. She works for ANC, the South African Liberation Movement. Now she had been closer to my home than I had been for many years.
Selma, I've just returned from Africa and my head is just full of African sounds and African sights. I have in my head the music of the frogs, of the cockroaches, of the locusts, of the lions, of the, if you are going through certain areas in Tanzania, but also the music of the people in the marketplace.
I grew up in a far-off rural area in Namibia, Lindi in Soweto, the ill-famed segregated black suburb of Johannesburg. But we were both poor little black girls under apartheid. Lindi started telling me about her childhood.
Well, I didn't have a father when I was growing up, and we stayed with my grandmother. That's my brother and I. And my mother used to work in Johannesburg. But it was so nice when she came. You got so excited, but you really didn't feel like it was your mother. It was a big sister, somebody who had seen lots of good things in Johannesburg and was also bringing you some nice gifts, maybe a few items of clothing. You had a certain satisfaction that that was mother, but you didn't have the emotional attachment to the person as a mother. We were more attached to our grandmother because that's the person who looked after us, who cooked for us. And the situation was very, very bad. She used to work for white girls doing their laundry every day, washing and ironing for them. She would leave us at about 6 in the morning, and I can almost hear the gate creaking as she was leaving. And she had a very interesting expression. Every time she left in the morning, she would say, "Abadli singwa sumlungu," those who ate the white man's bread.
Lindy knew that my father had been a contract worker for Apartheid. This meant that he worked far away from home for years on end.
What does it feel like if your father comes back after maybe a year or two away from home? Do you really have a sense that he's your father, or he comes? You have a feeling that there's a stranger in the house that you're related to?
Especially when one is young, when the father comes back, you have a desire to meet him, but sometimes you don't know really that is your father. Father, when he's away, sometimes used to communicate, send letters, send some parcels, maybe include few sweets and so. But when he's coming home, you know how they used to come home? They used to, because I'm living very far from the center where the contract workers used to be recruited. It's long far. Sometimes when I was young, there was no even cars. They used to walk. They carry their things on their shoulders to walk many days to come home. When they come home, almost during the nights. And they always they came always some strangers. They used to say, "Is anybody home? Can you come and help us or give us water?" You go there, mothers never go out to receive their husbands. And it's a pity because there's no communication that it's a husband and a wife. They seem so strange. There are lots of fear. They used to fear. Now he has wives. They think that maybe their husbands, when they have been so long,
they found somebody else.
Exactly.
Well, I didn't have, that type of an upbringing, although I know that my grandfather worked in the mines. Mm. But I was going to tell you this very interesting thing, that later my mother went to work in Johannesburg, where she was born. But when she died, she wasn't a citizen of Johannesburg. Mm. She worked for a white man, who was born in Jerusalem. Mm. And he could accumulate wealth in South Africa, rise up until he could be a mayor of Johannesburg. Now you can imagine that somebody was born in Jerusalem, could be a mayor of Johannesburg. My mother was born in Johannesburg, could not even vote in Johannesburg.
All Lindy's stories seem to be very closely tied to her being a black child in a society ruled by the whites. She made me see the fatherless little girl, her mother away working, and even her grandmother gone all day. Just Lindy left alone with the responsibility for the little brother. In Soweto, the symbol of apartheid. But sometimes the grandmother had time to take her to the city.
And I saw these little white boys and white girls getting into a house. I didn't know what it was. Mm. And some of them were wearing, their swimming outfits. And I looked at my grandmother. I said, "Can I join them? What are they going to do?" She said, "They're going to swim. Can I join them?" Her whole facial expressions changed. And I knew how to read her expressions. Mm. And I thought something was wrong. She said, "No, you can't join them." I said, "But why can't I join them? They're about as big as myself." She took my hand. She said, "Look at this. You see this? You see that? That's why you can't."
I told Lindy that I grew up very isolated in the countryside. I didn't see a white child until I was a teenager. But my friends and I loved to play with the white dolls that the fathers brought from their contract labor. We liked to comb their blonde, soft hair. We were very innocent. On my way to school, we used to pass a big baobab tree. And in this baobab tree, when the South African soldier came to my area, they used it a tree where they used to hang people. They hang people with their legs up and their heads down. They are tortured people. I remember how they screamed. We ran home terrified, but our mother said, shh, and told us to take another way to school.
Southern trees bear strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root, black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees.
Lindy is old enough to remember the introduction of apartheid. Before that, the system had been colonial and racist. But when the Boers won the power from the English, they wanted to systemize segregation. This was in 1948, and Lindy was in primary school.
Everybody was talking about apartheid, and we didn't know what this was. We knew we were poor, we knew there was racial discrimination, but this was a new word, apartheid. I'm telling you, after they won the elections, it was so dramatic, because one time I used to commute by train from Soweto to the center of Johannesburg, where our school was. It was a school for Africans. Then suddenly we're told we couldn't use a certain entrance. An entrance we had been using all the time, we had to use to go around the station, enter it from another entrance, the back entrance. That's how apartheid really affected us. We were children. So one time our teacher says to us in class, tell me, who is better, an English-speaking white person or an African-speaking white person? We all had our little hands up. We knew the answer. And the first answer was an English-speaking white person. Second answer, English-speaking white person. So we're all satisfied with ourselves. Then he called one of the boys, said, you stand here, I want to demonstrate to them. We were watching, and he just went on his face with his palm, slapped him. Mm-hmm. And then he started brushing the same side that he had slapped. And then he went to the other side and started polishing it up again. He said, that's an Englishman for you. Then he said, demonstration number 2. He smacked the boy again and smacked him again and just looked at him. He said, that's an Afrikaans-speaking person. Now, who is better?
As a young girl, Lindy tried to work against the apartheid system in mixed racial groups. But she was unable to get the teaching jobs she was qualified for, and her anti-apartheid work often became a make-believe game. She had to pretend she was a maid every time the police came to the house she shared with some white girls.
You can't play these games too long, because soon something eats you up, it erodes something in you. And then I decided, no, I can't do that. Got a scholarship to go to study in the United States. I think it was really in the United States that I understood I have to be involved fully in fighting against apartheid. Because you see, one of the things that made us go there was American propaganda in the first place. South Africa was terrible, there was apartheid. But somehow, the United States was projected as the land of the free and the home of the brave. But I'm telling you, it didn't take me 2 days when I realized that living South Africa really meant you've changed the scenery, but it's the same story, it's the same drama. There was racism there. And this was in the 60s when you had the civil rights movement. And from there on, I just knew that I can no longer postpone being involved in politics. So I was involved, anti-racist struggles in the United States, until finally I said the best thing is really to join the ANC full time. You know, when we're talking about exile and decisions to participate in the struggle for liberation, I was thinking about my daughter. That to me was the most difficult part of the decision, because I hadn't stayed with her. I left her when she was 2 years old, and the next time I saw her, she was about 11 years, and I only stayed with her 2 years. Then I decided that I wanted to work full-time for the ANC. And I asked her, because it was very important for me that she frees me, she lets me do that. I asked her how she feels about it. Her response was very interesting, because she said, well, I'm just your daughter and I'm lucky I have you as a mother. What about the thousands of our children? They are fighting, they are being killed. I would be very selfish if I said you shouldn't join the struggle full-time.
Where is she now?
Now she's studying to be a lawyer in the United Kingdom.
That's very nice.
So in a way, it's you have those personal responses, personal feelings. I didn't want not to be with her, but like she said herself, the people are more important than me alone as individual. But I suspect that when she's alone, she still
Think about the mother.
yes,
Yes,
she
that's
must
natural.
feel like that.
Lindy thus sacrificed her daughter and chose the political struggle. My own life has also changed totally by my leaving my country. My children feel like Swedes. What will this uprooting mean to them? The apartheid system tears our families apart, whether we stay in our countries or live in exile.
The world knows that apartheid is a terror regime. When they support apartheid, which is a white racist government policy, then they must also understand that that cooperation is between white Europe and white South Africa.
Exactly.
But you know, the other thing is that for many decades, we saw South Africa piling up weapons, all kinds of military weapons, warships, warplanes, helicopters, arms. White civilians, white people in South Africa have weapons, right?
Yes, to defend themselves.
To defend themselves. But when these countries supply these weapons, they know that South Africa is not going to use these weapons on Europe. They know that these weapons are going to be used on school children, on civilians, on workers, so that apartheid really defends the interests of the Western countries. These investments must be defended. That's why then they even violate the United Nations arms embargo of 1977.
Now they have the apartheid system. This is a door for black people. This is a door for white people. This is a bus for white people. This is a bus for... But they forgot something. In military, in South African military, the most people who are there are black people fighting on their side. They're using them for the purpose of fighting against the other black people. But they never found other doors or other special weapons to give to these blacks in their army. Don't you think that's... they didn't think properly, maybe?
No, I think it's a very clever trick. But the idea, of course, is they realize that the whites alone will not be sufficient to protect and defend apartheid. So it's much better for them to win over some of the oppressed people who will then be used as cannon fodder to go forward and defend apartheid.
Everybody of any color knows that apartheid is a destructive thing, philosophy. Even those who, as you said, those who are practicing it, I don't think they like it, but they are doing it for defending a certain interest.
It's destructive to them, as it is destructive to us. I think that, you know, when you think of a white child who grows up, from the time they begin to see anything, they know they've got two mothers. The white mother, who's responsible for their being in the world, and the black mother.
Who is giving them daily food and everything, daily care.
Yes, it's the real mother, the one who washes them, irons for them, the one who takes them and sings lullabies to them, the one who gives her emotions to them. But afterwards, they turn around and call that mother a kafir, somebody inferior. So I think that it's a very destructive policy, and because it was made by people, I think people can also change it.
Hello, how are you?
Fine, and you?
Just fine.
In about 1983, in a letter that Nelson Mandela wrote, and it was released from prison, he said, "Between the anvil of united mass action and the hammer of armed struggle, we shall crush apartheid and white minority rule." That's a quote from him. I think in the past 3 years, we have seen the largest mobilization of our people in all their formations on all levels.
Men de krav som befolkningen nu reser möts med undantagslagar, arresteringar av alla ledare, avrättningar och gatuvåld. Hur mycket blod måste flyta innan målet är nått?
We are in a struggle for liberation. Nowhere in the world have people been involved in a struggle for liberation without sacrifice. One of the implications, of course, is that why aren't blacks going whole hog out to attack whites? But it comes back to what the struggle in South Africa is about. It is a struggle against the system of oppression and white minority rule, and not a struggle against the white population. Again, Mandela said, "I am opposed to white domination and will be opposed to black domination." We just have simple principles which are accepted internationally. One person, one vote, universal adult suffrage. And that's all it means.
Lindy var från Sydafrika och Selma Hishong var från Namibia, växte upp under samma förtryck. Men den lilla vita minoriteten i Sydafrika behärskar mer än så. Inte bara grannländerna, de så kallade frontstaterna, utan alla de självständiga svarta länderna i södra Afrika är beroende av apartheidregimen. Hur kan den vara så stark?
Ja, Sydafrika, som brukar utmålas som en jätte i världsskala, men inte är det, är en gigant i södra Afrika. Det är en gigant i kraft av sin ekonomi, där Sydafrikas bruttonationalprodukt är 3 gånger större än den samlade bruttonationalprodukten för 9 oberoende stater i södra Afrika, från Tanzania i norr till Lesotho i söder. Och det här är en följd av historien, en följd av koloniseringen i södra Afrika, där länderna i södra Afrika har inlämnats i Sydafrikas ekonomi och via Sydafrikas ekonomi i världsekonomi. Så att de idag är beroende på de flesta områden. Sydafrika låter sig inte bindas vid internationella avtal utan ockuperar Namibia i strid mot FN-beslut. Sydafrika följer inte säkerhetsavtal med Mosambik till exempel, utan fortsätter att destabilisera Mosambik. Sydafrika går in och attackerar Lesotho och nu senast i juni månad 1985 Botswana.
De här kriget mot SWAPO och stödet åt rebellerna i Mosambik och de här andra aktiviteterna gentemot frontstaterna, de måste ju kosta väldigt mycket.
Ja, det kostar oerhörda summor och militärutgifterna i Sydafrika har ökat ofantligt under senare år. Sydafrika är idag en väldigt militariserad stat. Kriget i Namibia till exempel kostar oerhörda summor. Sydafrika har 100 000 man förlagda i Namibia. ett land som har 1 miljon invånare. Och i norra delen av landet så går det en sydafrikansk soldat på 5 invånare. Men ser man till de totala kostnaderna för att upprätthålla apartheidsystemet och för destabiliseringspolitiken i södra Afrika, så är kostnaderna i Sydafrika för försvar, militär, polis, fångvård, bantusansystemet etc. inemot hälften av statsbudgeten i Sydafrika.
Det är ju en fantastisk summa.
Det är en mycket stor summa. Sydafrika har ju hittills betraktat oppositionen som en extern företeelse och har därför satsat framförallt militärt utanför landet för att slå sönder frontstaterna och de omkringliggande länderna. Men i takt med den stigande oppositionen inne i Sydafrika så tvingas ju Sydafrika att inse att oppositionen är intern och en följd av apartheidpolitiken.
Sydafrika ockuperar Namibia helt i strid med alla internationella avtal. Namibia har värdefulla naturtillgångar, men har ockupationen också någon annan betydelse än den ekonomiska?
Namibia är en buffert för Sydafrika, för det vita Sydafrika, till försvar mot det befriade, det oberoende Afrika som man ser som fienden. Men det här ska inte uppfattas bara defensivt. Namibia är också en offensiv buffert för Sydafrika, en språngbräda som Sydafrika använder för att utföra sina attacker, sina anfall, sitt krig mot Angola idag och kanske mot Zambia och andra länder imorgon.
En jätte i södra Afrika, men under allt hårdare press inifrån och utifrån, det är Sydafrika idag. Lindy arbetar här i Sverige, långt hemifrån, men försöker ständigt hålla kontakt med det som händer inne i Sydafrika. Och hon är hoppfull.
I am. You can't be in a struggle for liberation without hope, without something that keeps those ideals so alive before you every day.